June 30th, 1908. At exactly 7:17 a.m., the sky over the remote Siberian taiga literally tore in half. The explosion unleashed a staggering 50 megatons of energy, matching the force of the largest thermonuclear bomb ever created by humanity. The shockwave rattled across the globe twice. Barometers in Great Britain, Germany, and even the United States went wild, registering atmospheric waves as if the planet itself had been struck by a hammer. Across Europe and parts of Western Russia, the night sky glowed with an eerie, silvery luminescence for days. People in London and Paris could read newspapers at midnight without artificial light. But what actually caused this cataclysm? Deep inside the frozen wilderness, an apocalypse had occurred, leaving behind a mystery that would baffle science for over a century.
To truly understand the scale of the Tunguska event, we have to look back at the terrifying morning of the explosion. Nomadic Evenki herders living dozens of miles away reported seeing a second sun appear in the sky, so blindingly bright and hot that it felt like their clothing was about to catch fire. Seconds later, a deafening roar ripped through the atmosphere, a sound likened to artillery fire from 1,000 cannons. The shockwave knocked people off their feet, shattered windows in settlements miles away, and hurled heavy objects through the air. Hundreds of miles to the south, the Trans-Siberian Railway was cutting through the forest. The engineer of a passenger train suddenly slammed on the emergency brakes because the ground began to heave so violently that he thought the tracks were melting. Passengers screamed as the carriages rocked off the rails, looking out the windows to see a towering wall of smoke and fire on the horizon. If that train had been just a few miles closer, it would have been completely incinerated.
Inexplicably, despite the massive scale of the blast, no scientific expedition was sent to investigate immediately. First came the chaos of the Russian Revolution, followed by World War I and a brutal civil war. For nearly 20 years, the explosion site remained untouched, shrouded in local folklore and absolute isolation. When scientists finally prepared to go, they faced an unexpected obstacle: the local Evenki people. They refused to guide anyone to the epicenter. To them, the blast wasn't a meteorite. It was the wrath of Agni, the god of thunder and fire, who had descended from the sky to punish humanity. The locals warned outsiders that anyone who stepped foot into the dead zone would be cursed, swallowed by the earth, or struck down by unseen forces. The local shamans spoke of a smoking ruin where the forest died, but no living creature dared to cross the threshold.
It wasn't until 1927 that Russian scientist Leonid Kulik finally led the first grueling expedition deep into the heart of the taiga. Kulik expected to find a massive crater, perhaps a mile wide, left by a colossal space rock crashing into the Earth. Instead, after weeks of hacking through dense swamp and burnt timber, he walked into a surreal, nightmarish landscape. The devastation was absolute, but completely backwards from what science expected. Over 80 million trees had been knocked flat across 2,000 square kilometers, pointing outward in a massive, flawless radial pattern, like the spokes of a giant wheel. Yet right at the absolute center of the blast zone, the trees weren't flattened at all. They were left standing completely upright, stripped of every single branch, root, and leaf, looking like an army of giant scorched telephone poles. And most shocking of all, there was no pit, no crater, no iron, no stone, no space debris whatsoever, just swampy ground dotted with shallow sinkholes. How could a 50 megaton explosion happen without leaving a single trace of an impactor? The total absence of physical debris birthed decades of wild, competing scientific theories. Theory number 1, the ice comet. Scientists suggested that a rogue comet made mostly of frozen water and gases entered the atmosphere, detonated mid-air like a giant nuclear bomb, and completely vaporized, leaving no solid remnants behind.
Theory number 2, antimatter. A microscopic fragment of cosmic antimatter collided with Earth's atmosphere, instantly annihilating itself in a flash of pure energy without touching the ground. Theory number 3, a miniature black hole passing straight through the planet. Some fringe researchers even hypothesized a localized spatial anomaly or an alien craft self-destructing to prevent a planetary catastrophe. Yet every single theory has massive scientific flaws, leaving researchers grasping at straws. More than a century later, the Tunguska event remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of our natural world. Modern computer simulations suggest it was indeed a massive asteroid airburst, a space rock that disintegrated miles above the surface, creating a superheated plasma shockwave that pressed downward rather than carving a crater. But physics and math can only take us so far. Researchers who visit the site today still report strange anomalies. Trees inside the blast zone growing at an unnatural, accelerated rate, and compasses spinning wildly out of control. Deep inside the Siberian wilderness, the silence remains unbroken, guarding a secret that nature has successfully hidden for over 100 years.